Heyla, and welcome to Coffee with Avila. I'm Aviana Lemaire, and on this channel I talk about neurodivergence and life and hopefully greater living. But I'm just going to probably go there and talk about all of the journey. Today I want to talk about consistency in manifesting as an ADHDer. I've got a million notes. I'm going to try to stick with them because this is a huge subject and my brain connects with a million stories and experiences. So I'm going to spend a lot of time looking at this page so I can try not to do that. But consistency, here's what's gotten me thinking about it. There's a really strong suggestion out there. I've run into it all of my life, and I've definitely run into it a lot since I ran into the manifestation community at large. And now that I can just click on a video and listen to somebody going on about this subject matter, it's pretty easy to run into this message over and over and over again throughout the day. You pick a method and you stick with it. The main thing is to remain consistent. The message says remain consistent by A, making sure you're doing it regularly, do it every day, do it multiple times a day, don't skip a day. I'm just going to go ahead and flat out say I can't even guarantee at this point in my life, after practicing different forms of manifestation from jump and being taught about it since I was basically probably from conception, just from way early on, I still, at 40, probably cannot get every single day on anything in my life. There's too much else going on. There's stuff I don't want to get into. There's stuff I'm manifesting away. There are reasons. Sometimes every day is just not possible. And I frankly have never lived an every day it gets done kind of life. If it's not some kind of automatic biological function like general cellular turnover or whatever it is, just neurons firing every day is basically not happening. It's going to have to be on that level to be a guarantee that that's a possibility, and most stuff is not. So it's not happening every single day. So I can't do it in that way. But what I have noticed is that even if I can't do it every single day, I'm thinking about it. My life changed greatly 4 years ago and it refreshed everything, and I feel like I'm on a new I'm just on a new journey in a new life. Everything is different. Nothing feels the same. I don't feel the same. I don't even relate to who I was before because so much has changed and I feel like a different person from her, she who was there before. This past 4.5 years, I have remained consistent and I haven't been doing anything every day. I have not, in some cases, been physically able to do anything every day, but I have been consistent overall. And this is what I want to highlight. I have kept at it. There have been peaks and there have been valleys, but every time there was a peak and a valley followed it, I went back up into the peak and I just kept going. I've been consistent overall. I also want to mention, I'm strapless today, but the stuff is there. It's just I'm looking over here and I realize that you basically can't see it, but it's there. Small mention, important note, and back on with what I'm saying. Another thing that seems to be very important and is mentioned a lot is the concept of choosing a particular method and sticking with it. I can see where this would make it easier for a lot of types of brains. It might make it easier for a lot of us if we could do it like a lot of autists. I'm autistic and ADHD. I feel like my Audi brain sometimes likes to stick with the exact same thing every day, like how I would prefer to journal every single day. Not at the exact same time maybe, but kind of. I'd kind of like to have my journaling every day, exact same time, get everything done. But when it comes down to it, I generally just don't. I will sometimes just take notes in my phone and then later on sit down and fill out my journal for multiple days. Notes, just taking them out of digital format and putting them onto paper and analog where it works for me. Now, that's not, in my mind, I don't really think that's being consistent because I want the experience, but it is being consistent because ultimately I'm sitting there, like I want the experience of writing. I love the pen to paper thing. This is part of why scripting didn't work for me because I don't know how to explain it. I want to be consistent with it, but it seems like it's just so much work for me. It's as if it takes all of the fun out of manifesting. It's as if it just makes it miserable in some way, and I really like writing, so I don't fully know why it's been so bizarre for me. I can kind of enjoy it once in a while. So I have tried, for instance, as methods that I've tried to script and script repeatedly, to script not every day generally, but fairly often, a few times a week, and it just isn't happening. So I've kind of dropped that as a method. That's another thing. I've tried to stick with all kinds of methods. I've got a whole list with that, scripting, proper old-fashioned meditation, prayer obviously is kind of a natural one because I was taught that a good amount of life. It changes throughout my life how I do it, but it's part of my day anyway, just naturally. Drawing, I'm an artist, so I will draw or doodle what I'm thinking about or what I want. And I have done a journal even inside of a traveler's notebook where I tried to do something like that. I can't say I won't go back to it because it was a lot of fun, but I haven't done it in a while. I just haven't been feeling it. I've tried all these different methods, subliminals, recording my own. I prefer the control to record my own. I've tried low-level consciousness where you're trying to manipulate theta waves when you're extremely suggestible. They call it SATS, or state akin to sleep. That's the term everybody uses, and I don't want to continue overusing it like crazy, but I know that's the one a lot of people in the manifestation community or who are curious about the manifestation community will recognize, so I'm throwing it out there. That's what it means. I do this a lot when I'm autopiloting. I do it when that's what I call it. When I know I'm doing something, I can just get through it. I don't have to think. I'm making my morning coffee, for instance. I will just go, pot, water, I make it on the stovetop. I just like how it tastes better. It brings out the flavors differently. So there's this whole process. Pot, put a little salt in the water, my coffee, my stevia, my sugar. I put cayenne pepper in it, and the whole time I'm doing all this, I'm on autopilot. So it's a really good time for me to be listening to affirmations or trying to repeat my affirmations, thinking about them, whatever it is, focusing on something, processing what it would be like to make coffee in my perfect life. Whatever it is that I want to change, I'm like, oh, how would it be different for me making this coffee this morning if, for instance, I was wearing the perfect wardrobe while I'm doing it? Or if I felt like I were in the perfect health right now while I'm doing it? If I were at the peak of happiness, whatever I know will bring me joy, whatever I'm working for. That's a time for me to let my mind wander. So I use that technique too. But none of these techniques have been things where I've just stuck with them consistently and not wavered or tried to do them, again, can't be every day for me, but as often as possible. But what I'm noticing even with that, I tried a million methods. And I didn't consistently stick with one individual method or find one that works that way. But what I was doing the entire time was consistently doing some type of method, thinking my desired thoughts, focusing on my intention. I was consistently trying something that gives me focus on my intention. This counts. These things count. I've written so many notes down right here with so many thoughts. I've gotten a lot of flack, like I've written down, ADHDers tend to be accustomed to getting flack because we pick up and we put down new thoughts, new interests, new hobbies, new fascinations. To everyone else, it kind of looks like we're just picking it up, putting it down, like we're too lazy to complete it, or, a lot of negative messages. I don't necessarily want to call them out, but we generally have already heard them anyway. So a lot of this stuff has been circulating around in my head for decades. It'll show you that repetition will work, whether it's coming at you every day or it's coming at you fairly seldom. Because I was not usually told every single day for any time frame that I was lazy or I wasn't told negative things, that I was lazy or rebellious literally every day. But I was told them so consistently over the course of many years, and in some cases over the course of decades, that the message is sunk in anyway. To the point where now sometimes I will constantly have to remind myself, get out of this mindset. That's old. That's not me thinking. That's somebody else's negative words. Because I will find myself noticing that I forgot my affirmations. And then all of a sudden in my mind, it's just, well, that's it. I can't stick with anything. I'll become convinced in that moment I can't manifest anything because I can't do it consistently. I picked up I was really worried about that. I was like, I picked up every method and none of them has stuck. I've tried to do something every day. I've tried to do it 3 times a week. I've tried to do it at a certain time of day and it hasn't worked. And I just got into this place where I thought that's why certain things don't feel like they're moving much. I just clicked my pen. That's what that sound was. I'm going to sit it down because I will start stimming with the pen and it'll be really close to the mic. Otherwise, I would probably still be doing it for comfort. But sitting it down, long story short, I've gotten to a point processing through where those messages actually came from. And again, they came from someone else consistently delivering them to me over such a long time frame that they sunk in. As miserable as it is, that in and of itself is proof that even if you're not doing something every single day, your overall consistency is making it sink into your brain. Because if I could get programmed by someone else's thoughts when I didn't believe them and they didn't make sense and they were negative and they harmed me, I can definitely pick up on something I do want to believe in, excuse me, that does make sense, that's positive for me, and I can program myself. Because if there's somebody else involved, that person from the past, they had to come at me, they had to find me, they had to speak to me. They had to be in the room, or they had to have an influence. They had to pop into my head. I'm with me all the time. That means that with this knowledge that repetition can work no matter how long it takes, I can repeat something positive until it works, no matter how long it takes. And there are some things where I've really been going through stuff because the stuff I've been through has told me this manifestation is too big. That's impossible. But you know what I've realized? I know there's a theory, I mentioned this because I know there's a theory that no manifestation is harder than the rest. And if it is harder, it's just because, you know, that's where you are in your mind. You need to get over that, and as soon as you get over it, it'll become easy. Here's the thing. The stuff that was really, really hard for me, I never really got permanently over it. I had peaks and valleys with that too. My emotions would change, triggers would change, and I was never at a place where I fully believed that the really hard stuff was easy. But at the same time, some of the really, really hard stuff that I believed was hard anyway, or that felt like it was impossible, where the message had been, you can't do this, it's just not a thing for you. Some of those things are here. And I have to think about this sometimes, because sometimes I feel like I'm just failing. If I'm working on an affirmation for something, and it seems like a big deal, and it's not fully come, or it's not come and it hasn't stayed yet, then I will get to thinking, well, I can't do the big stuff. But guess what? I have done some big stuff. I've done some really big stuff. And one example of this, I mean, there are kind of a lot of examples of this, really. I have told the story of what happened about 4.5 years ago in my life. I snapped out of a lifelong depression and it never came back. Multiple factors went into that, but I was already working with intentional manifestation because it's something I've been taught all throughout my life. The first or second video on this channel says it's something about, the title is something about eliminating toxic positivity from manifesting, and that story is in there. Coming out of a 1/4 century long depression was a big deal in my life. And after 1/4 century of pure depression, I did not believe it was possible for me to ever not be depressed again. Definitely not to be just happy and filled with joy. And I'm just happy and filled with joy. My default state is just my true personality now. I'm back. And I feel wonderful. And I knew this was impossible. I knew it for multiple decades. There was never a time when I fully believed that it was possible for that to go away. And it happened anyway. So maybe you don't even need, that's kind of a different subject, but if it feels impossible to you, sometimes you feel better about it and you hit a peak and you're like, I'm going to work on this, I'm going to affirm, but sometimes it feels really low and you hit a valley and you think it's impossible. Maybe that up and down motion isn't pushing you as far back as you think. I mean, it's the nature of a wave, and the nature of a wave is constant motion. The only constant is change. Maybe if what you do is focus on where you are, like riding any wave, if you focus on where you are right now and just handle it in whatever is the healthiest way, the safest and healthiest way, maybe that's part of how we ultimately get out of the harsh waves and eventually land back in calm waters.